Bienvenue sur bbwilder.com.
For many years, I have observed the investigations into the UFO phenomenon and been very, very skeptical as to what was really taking place here, and found the field very, very confusing. Only in recent years has the picture started to become more clear, has the evidence become more substantial, and some of the investigators considerably more sure of themselves. And that has brought me into this a lot more openly and candidly than I ever have been in the past.
Was there any one particular event where you came in contact with someone you felt of some stature?
Not a particular event, but a series of events in which I talked with people of stature, of military and government credentials and position, and heard their stories and their desire to tell their stories openly to the public, and that got my attention very, very rapidly.
You mentioned a couple of days ago, this is concerning the Roswell incident, that there have been a number of individuals that have come forward and that were laughed at or ridiculed in some respects. But there were a number of people who have not yet come forward publicly that you've
That is correct. There are a number of people that have become public. Generally, they have been of advanced age and they want to tell their story, feel the need to tell their story while they're alive. There are quite a few other people who are still a bit reticent to tell their story because they were under security oath, or they were badgered, if you will, to be quiet about their story. But many of them are chomping at the bit to tell their story and are looking for some sort of congressional immunity or congressional subpoena so that they can tell their story appropriately.
And not obviously worry about being...
Beg pardon?
I don't know what the repercussions are of breaking one's national security oath.
Well,
is it quite...
Well, it can be very severe if indeed it is found that the security oath is valid. There's great question these days as to whether these oaths are indeed valid anymore, because much of the activity does not seem to be under executive or congressional oversight. And it may very well be the fact that this activity is no longer a constitutional activity.
Mm-hmm. You were born in Roswell, New Mexico. Do you remember as a child hearing rumors?
Oh, I remember very clearly, and somewhere in my archives, I think, I have a reproduction of the newspaper account of the day the so-called Roswell incident took place. And I was 17 years old at the time, and I only remember it in passing. But over the years, as it's become evident, yes, I remember that.
Was there a lot of speculation at the time, or were there...
No, I think the following day when the denial took place, most people, most average citizens said, okay, that's what it was, and then dismissed it and went on with their lives.
What do you think the single most compelling bit of evidence that would support the existence of UFOs?
Well, the single most compelling evidence would be hard material, clearly of extraterrestrial origin. And there are those who claim to have that material or have handled that material, who have examined that material, and that it is clearly not of terrestrial origin.
People that you've been in contact with?
Yes, people that I've been in contact with.
I guess this would lead me to ask you the question, is it possible, in your opinion, that an organization like Majestic 12 could have been formed to deal with the debris that was found in the desert near Roswell, New Mexico in 1947?
Well, of course, an organization could have been formed, and it could have to deal with this issue. Undoubtedly, it was formed, and it could very well be considered of such high classification as to be an unacknowledged project, which means that even its existence is denied. And that seems to be precisely what has happened. Now, whether Majestic 12 is really the project or not, I don't know, not having first-hand experience there, but that, of course, is what the documentation shows, is that there was a project, or at least a portion of the project, with that name, and much of the information seems to have been carried out within that project. Much of the activities, what I should have said.
Yeah. Any of the people that you've been in contact with in recent years, I think at one point you said something on one of the network televisions about being in contact with a couple different government officials from 2 different countries.
Yes, there are government officials. I have been in touch with Soviet people. I have been indirectly in touch with the Belgians, who are very, very open in their reports of what has been going on in their country and their intercept activities in their military. And I've been in touch with people within our own government whose official duties led them into these type of UFO investigations, or dealing with the material and the information in some particular way.
Did you find these individuals you spoke with impressive?
Some of them are very impressive. They are good career people within government, very serious about their jobs, and I find them credible. And it's more than finding them credible. They have to be checked out. Their story has to be checked against, were they in the positions they claim to have been in? Were they at the locations they claim to have been in? In other words, their story needs to be checked independently and verified. Now, their personal experience, what they understood and gained from those positions, is unique to them. But their record of movement, their record of employment, where they have been, what they have done, that often is quite verifiable, and steps have been taken to verify those. And if these areas check out and the people's stories hang together, then I consider them credible witnesses.
In your opinion, how is it possible for a government which has been known to leak information maintain such a thick blanket of secrecy for 50 years?
Well, it hasn't maintained. It has been leaking out all over the place. But the way it's been handled is by denial, by denying the truth of the documents that have leaked, by attempting to show them as fraudulent, as bogus of some sort. There has been a very large disinformation and misinformation effort around this whole area. And one must wonder how better to hide something put out in the open than just to say it isn't there. You're deceiving yourself if you think this is true, and yet there it is right in front of you. So it's a disinformation effort that is the most concerning here, not the fact that they've kept a secret. They haven't kept it. It's been getting out into the public for 50 years or more.
When did you decide at what point to speak openly about this? And were you concerned about jeopardizing your reputation as an American hero in that respect?
I am far more concerned with discovering facts and discovering the truth of issues than I am about reputation. If you are sincere and if you work at your projects with integrity, that's all that's truly important in my mind. And what causes me to want to speak out and to be a part of this is the fact that it seems that the center of activity is no longer under high-level government oversight, no longer under high-level military oversight, not under executive branch oversight at all. And that is deeply concerning because some of the events are very bizarre. If the stories of abductees can be understood and validated, and I'm sure it's not exactly what it's purported to be, there is something going on here that is rather nefarious, and we need to get to the bottom of it. And to me, that is the most important issue here. I think that there seems to be a clandestine effort without a proper constitutional oversight that is being carried out, including the disinformation effort. And the question of that is why. I think it is a major threat to the security of our democratic system. And that is of concern. And I do not like conspiracy theories at all. I reluctantly have been led to the fact that there's something very unhealthy that's going on here. And I'd like to find out what it is.
You just recently attended, from what I understand, a behind-the-scenes sort of closed-door hearings briefing Congress, and from what I understand, the president was briefed. What were the individuals like, that you went with, and what was the objective?
Well, it really wasn't closed-door hearings. It was invited participants, including the press. There were briefings for members of the White House, members of Congress, members of the military, and members of the security agencies to look at the assembled data and to hear the testimony of certain witnesses. Now, I must say that the witnesses that were there that told their story were impressive, but they are certainly not the most high level or the most knowledgeable people that are available. The purpose of this was to get the attention of Congress, to request hearings within the Congress on these matters, and to try to open up this whole field to more scientific scrutiny, more government oversight, and to help sort out some of the wheat from the chaff. There's an enormous amount of disinformation floating around that is alarming people and causing crazy incidents, sick incidents like the Heaven's Gate suicide. And I'm convinced, as are many of the other folks that are involved here, that only by factual knowledge coming out can we restore some bit of sanity to this whole thing. The people involved, Dr. Stephen Greer was one of those that was kind of a leader in organizing this particular presentation. But there are many other people of immaculate credentials who are also involved and interested.
And of course, what are they getting out of it at this point? Not a whole lot, I would imagine. I mean, what's in it?
There is certainly no glory associated with this, and generally more ridicule than anything else. And one must ask, why are these folks doing it? Why are people like myself doing it? It's simply because we see some truth here, and but very real, that are of great concern, and they need to be brought to the light of day and to the better light of scientific scrutiny and government oversight.
One quick question I want to ask you about, have you spoken with anyone with any stature that would support the theory that secret bases such as Area 51 are housing alien technology?
From my best knowledge at the moment, Area 51 is not particularly involved anymore. There's been too much publicity thrown at that. But I have talked with individuals of stature who say that that is true, that there are such bases. And I have not personally talked with all of them, but my colleagues have, that there are others who know where this activity is, have been there, have viewed some of the activity, and suggest that it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mind you, we must point out, I have no first-hand experience myself with this. I am relying strictly upon the testimony of people I believe to be very credible with military credentials, scientific credentials, and stature in their positions within government or within intelligence or within contractor organizations who would like to tell their story under proper congressional immunity and without fear of prosecution or reprisal for having told their story.
Have you been threatened or concerned about your own security? Because, of course, a man in your position should be taken seriously.
There is a small concern here, but by trying to be very open and trying to be very straightforward about this, I think it is minimal, and I'm willing to take that risk.
What word of advice would you give those who wish to filter out the garbage attached to the UFO phenomena? And
well, I think most people, the average person, is simply going to have to wait to see what comes out here. It takes a great deal of knowledge to know what is both possible and probable, a great deal of scientific training, because it appears we're dealing with a technology more advanced than is in the public domain. And even some very astute scientists are puzzled by some of the phenomenon we see. But we have now come to the conclusion that it's not that far advanced over what the frontiers of our current scientific knowledge would lead us to. And that's encouraging. We're not dealing with 2 orders of magnitude more sophistication than we're capable of. Maybe a certain extension of our own technologies, but not that much of an extension. So good scientific minds at the moment seem to be able to conjecture as to what are the nature of the technologies that we're seeing in action here.
You talked yesterday, a couple of days ago, about the clandestine government, and
I want to say clandestine government. I want to say a clandestine organization.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Clandestine organization had their own agenda. Could you go over what their agenda might possibly be?
Well, I can't know for sure, neither can anyone else. But as is often the case in these strange situations, power and control, economics, power, control, are most often the agenda.
Have you seen this unravel for the past 30-some-odd years?
What do you mean, unravel?
If there was a particular game plan.
No, I can't say that I have. I see the buildup of activity. I see people becoming more alarmed. I see very strange events that need proper scientific explanation. people are jumping on this UFO phenomenon, on the abduction phenomenon, on the animal mutilation, on the crop circle phenomenon, as though it's a new religion. I mean, we're getting it all intermixed with cultural myth, religious overtones, and such things that I don't think make a great deal of sense. And yet at the bottom of it, there's a real phenomenon going on here that needs to be properly understood. And that's what I'm about, and what many of us that are involved here are looking for, is we know that there's a reasonable scientific explanation. Even if it is a large portion of it is mental, it is still a valid area of investigation.
Mm. Could I ask you quickly, one of the questions I really wanted to ask you for my own personal thing is, what is it like traveling through space? I mean, there must have been a moment after all the chaos of takeoff and setting up the trajectory towards the moon where you could pause for and absorb.
Well, the only difference about traveling in space is that you're in a zero-G environment. When you're traveling in an aircraft, you have no sensation of speed, only sensations when you change speed. In other words, the body can sense acceleration. It does not sense velocity. And in space, it's the same thing, but you have added to that the lack of a gravitational field or a gravity vector that tells you which way is up or down. And so you are floating as though, unless you keep yourself anchored, you are floating as though you're underwater. We simulate on Earth by a ballistic trajectory in an aircraft, or we can simulate part of it by being properly ballasted with scuba equipment underwater. So the only real difference is the zero gravity sensation of floating. But otherwise, you're functioning inside a machine in this spacecraft, very much like you would in an aircraft, except for that very large difference, the lack of gravitation vector.
Of course, seeing the Earth getting smaller and smaller.
Well, now, those visual effects are very powerful. When you look at Earth as a tiny little ball instead of an all-consuming planet here, then you get the mountaintop, the classic mountaintop experience, the aha, the wow, the gee whiz. And in my case, in the case of many of us, there's an epiphany, there's an insight that there's something going on here we need to understand.
Did you feel just as connected to the cosmos as you did to the planet?
I beg your pardon?
Did you feel just as connected to the cosmos as you did the blue planet?
Well, that is exactly my epiphany experience, was to feel connected to the cosmos, to feel that in a sense is our larger home. I've said in my lectures many times, Earth is our cradle, it's not our destiny. And that comes out of having experienced the cosmos in a larger sense. Now, the question here, for me, is what is the evolutionary product or process that allows us to have that experience? This brain body is a pretty amazing thing to be able to assimilate information and provide that sort of creative, intuitive insight that allows us to have that experience. And a major question that I have been trying to answer for 25 years, and I think we've done pretty well with, is what sort of processes allows this creative being to exist, to have evolved, and with such flexibility and capability that we can go into space in a totally new environment, and the body immediately starts to adapt to that environment as though it's a new home, and that you get new insights to help you organize life and organize yourself and organize your thinking to accommodate this totally new perspective. That is a wow for me, and it has been something I've tried to get a handle on for 25 years. And I think what I published in The Way of the Explorer is a pretty good first cut at that.
Yeah, it's been, oops, sorry, knock something over here. I'm just going over, I guess the question I have to pop on you is, of course, once again, in your opinion, you have covered this to some respect. Did Roswell happen, in your opinion?
All I can do is, with regard to Roswell, all I can do is rely upon the evidence of the first-hand observers, since I did not personally investigate that incident, but the people that were there at the time and have been coming forward for years and trying to tell their story and been largely ignored, but the first-hand experiences of these credible witnesses that now in advanced years are anxious to tell their story, we can't deny that. And the evidence points to the fact that Roswell was a real incident and that indeed an alien craft did crash and that material was recovered from that crash site. All I can do is count on the witnesses that were there and anxious to tell their story. And the sum total, not any one witness by themselves, but the sum total of all of this seems to be credible. And one must ask, why are these military officers late in life coming forward and telling these bizarre stories with nothing to gain except loss of credibility? Why would they do that if it were not real?
Mm-hmm. And the people that are most probably dealing with repercussions of that incident today, could one call them the clandestine group?
No, I think it's just the nature of government here, the nature of bureaucracy. There may be people, I think, let me finish that statement. It's the nature of bureaucracy to hide its mistakes or to perpetuate its procedures and cover up. Secrecy was the order of the day 50 years ago, and probably for very good reasons at the time. But those reasons no longer pertain. We have long since passed the point where the public would be panicked or be overwhelmed by this. Over 70% of the people now believe that the government is involved in a cover-up of this sort. Now, if there's a clandestine group that is running the show at this point, they're responsible for the misinformation and the disinformation in order to maintain their cover. But in my opinion, current government is totally naive, or leadership in government is totally naive about what's going on. We have a whole new generation of people in government who don't know any more about it than what they read in the newspapers like the rest of us. And so they can be disbelieving and not even recognizing what really happened 50 years ago. Unless you take the time to go dig through all the files, dig through the thousands of pages of documents, talk to the witnesses, assess their credibility yourself, you have no way of sorting out the truth. Some of us have taken the time to do that. And the documents and the witnesses that we have talked to present a very credible story. And it helps you sort out the difference between the truth and the misinformation and disinformation.
Mm-hmm.
And the preponderance of evidence supports the Roswell incident and the fact that there is ongoing clandestine activity derived from reverse engineering some of the alien technologies.
If the argument is our government was flying these craft 50 years ago, why wouldn't the public know about them today?
I don't think our government was flying them 50 years ago. I think it is very likely it was ET activity 50 years ago, and may still be some today. But I think in the 50 years, we have reverse engineered some of the technology and learned how to manufacture it. It's taken years to do that. I did not initially believe that that had happened, but I now do believe that that has happened because the witnesses say so, and indeed the pickup of activity, the increase in activity in the last 30 years would indicate something more than casual alien sort of activity. For example, one survey says that over 1%, between 1 and 2% of the population is claiming an abduction experience. Now, if you run those numbers, that's several million people. And if you say, well, all of this has taken place in the last 20 years, it would mean over 300 people a day are having an abduction experience. Now, that's a pretty wild number.
Yeah.
There's something going on here that is needs to be understood. I don't think that there are 300 physical abductions going on every day, but there is a basis for this in some physical act somewhere. So what is the mix? Is there a mind control technology at work here? Have physical abductions taken place? What about the animal mutilation phenomenon? This is very strange. It's been made to look very occult, very like a satanic ritual or something, the way these things have taken place. And yet, if it were truly government activity, the liability of government for doing this to ranchers' cattle, the farmers' cattle, is enormous. There's some very strange things going on here. And our appeal here, we have a theory as to what is happening, but we don't know. Our appeal here is let's get some official look at this, get some good scientific brains, some additional scientific brains on it, and get to the bottom of it, because it's very disturbing.
What kind of I just have two more questions for you. What kind of technology do you think certain divisions of military are tinkering with?
Well, stealth technology is one of them. I mean, we get continual reports of soundless craft, and soundless craft that do not seem to have the normal propulsive systems that our standard technology uses, our most advanced standard technology uses. The reports of this are over and over and over. There's thousands of them. Okay, what sort of propulsion technology could be available for that? Well, in the frontiers of science, one might say it's force field propulsion, or a better word for it today is learning to use a zero-point energy field, the quantum fluctuations that seem to be responsible for the universe itself. There may be other forms of technology that propulsion technology that are just beyond our horizon. But many of the more compelling UFO sightings seem to have this sort of propulsion technology. And then, even 25 years ago, both the Soviet Union and our own intelligence community was experimenting with mind control technologies that could disrupt the functioning and the stable states of mind of people. Has that technology progressed much further? The answer to that is yes, it has. And having been involved in the consciousness field for 25 years, I'm aware that these things are possible. And I have been told by people in a position to know, who have worked in these areas within government, that indeed the technology has progressed far beyond that. So, are we dealing with a sophisticated mind control technology in part of these events that are taking place? I don't know, but it would seem that it's quite possible. And it would be a natural explanation for the apparent millions of people who seem to have had an abduction experience. Have they, or have they not? Were they physically abducted? Or are they made to believe they are abducted? I don't know the answer. But these are speculations based upon some rather valid understanding of where the technology could be that need to be answered.
I guess one of the last things I wanted to ask you is, if you had 1 minute to speak to the world regarding unexplained phenomena like UFOs, what would you say?
Just 1 minute? Okay. Hang with good, solid science, because there are explanations for all of these, even the most bizarre. There are explanations in the physical realm, and if we don't have a complete science to understand it right now, we will shortly. There's definitely a real phenomenon, but our minds also can be very creative and can get very far out at times and can bring up solutions that simply have no physical reality at all. And we have to be very careful of that. If you don't, you have the Heaven's Gate phenomenon all over again. It's vitally important that we keep our feet solidly on the ground, based in the good testable science that we know, while we investigate the frontier, the bizarre, the unusual, and try to make sense out of it. It is explainable.